Hello, my name is Suzanne Soederberg, and I'd like to provide an introduction to my upcoming article in Antipodes, the U.S. Debtfare State and the Credit Card Industry. The paper essentially looks at why credit cards have come to play such an increasingly significant role in the highly lucrative poverty industry in the United States. So, in other words, why the underemployed and unemployed workers in the United States, or what Marx refers to the relative surplus population, have become so highly indebted, and how this becomes, of course, socially reproduced and legitimated. So, to this end, I developed two analytical concepts, cannibalistic capitalism being one of them, and debt-fair state being the other. So, cannibalistic capitalism refers to a central form of accumulation in the neoliberal era that is fueled by secondary forms of exploitation, in which workers' real incomes are modified and in which interest can be extracted more profitably and quickly than in production. The high income streams derived from cannibalistic capitalism ultimately, however, rest with a gamble with the future. That is, the ability for the unemployed and underemployed worker to make minimum interest payments on their non-collateralized debt. So, like all forms of capitalism, cannibalistic capitalism is fraught with contradictions. And one of the tensions that I explore in the paper is as follows. Credit card issuers, such as the several banks that dominate the credit card industry, need to constantly ensure that a maximum amount of workers take on the greatest amount of debt at the highest interest rates and fees possible. This becomes a little difficult in a country whose main source of employment or growth sectors have been the low-wage service sector. So with the assistance of the state, credit card issuers can overcome these barriers, I argue, through what David Harvey refers to as spatial-temporal fix. So this leads me to the second analytical concept that I develop in the paper, namely the debt-fair state. So for me, debt-fair legitimates, normalizes, depoliticizes, and mediates the contradictions emerging from the spatial-temporal fixes pursued by the credit card companies. Facilitating intensified and expanded forms of predatory practices, the debt-fair state protects banks through legal and regulatory framing, both of which are reinforced and naturalized by state-propagated tropes such as consumer protection and the democratization of credit. So I suggest in the paper that debt-fair strategies should be viewed as complements to other vectors of the neoliberal state, or as what others have referred to it as the processes of neoliberalization, such as Jamie Peck's concept of the workfare state or Loïc Wacquant's notion of prison fare. In the paper, I demonstrate that when viewed within the bounds of cannibalistic capitalism, the debt-fair state has enhanced the social power of money by legally and morally permitting credit card issuers to generate enormous amounts of income from uncapped interest rates, and by continually extending plastic money to those who fall within Marx's category of the relative surplus population. So, in essence, the paper's contribution is the development of a Marxian understanding of money within the larger concept of cannibalistic capitalism and the debt-fair state, which I believe is an important element and neglected element in our understanding of the state within the larger debates of consumer society and financialization. The paper's implications for praxis rest on the politicization of legal measures and regulatory policies that have acted to naturalize and normalize high levels of indebtedness and dependence of growing numbers of the working poor in the United States on the credit card system for subsistence. And these narratives have also largely been deracialized, degendered, and declassed by the homogenizing identity of the consumer. By identifying and theorizing the role of a significant vector of neoliberal states, namely the debt-fair state, and situating the credit card industry within the larger concept of cannibalistic capitalism, I hope to denaturalize and denormalize some of these neoliberal myths that are being propagated, not only in the dominant representations of credit card debt in the media, but also in scholarship and more mainstream representations of debt in the economic literature and the legal literature in particular. So I very much welcome any questions and feedback you may have on the paper, especially since I am trying to develop a book on the spaces of Debtfare. And you can reach me with your questions and feedback at soederberg@queensu.ca.